Here on our Monday, we have Lisa Ruggiero here, council member for the city of Watertown, to talk about the budget, the proposed budget, and also a public hearing that's going to be held tonight before the council meeting at 7 o'clock in the chambers over at City Hall. One of two public hearings, and they don't start right at 7 o'clock. The hearing's at 7:15?
That's correct. It's 7:15, and tonight it will be about the operating budget, but also the capital budget.
And about anything else that people probably want to talk about. But first, good to have you in here. Glad
Thank
to have
you
you
for
here.
having me.
For sure. So the budget, let's just go back to the very beginning of it, and when you first got the document, you have it in front of you, 18.8% proposed tax rate increase. You've been here before, you've seen that, you've opened up the book before to see that sort of a level for an increase. What was your reaction to it? Were you probably not surprised?
Well, that's correct. I was not surprised because we saw what last year's budget was, proposed budget of 19%, and I've seen where previous city managers have given us these double-digit increases that it's been up to council to come back and say, no, we want to settle on here. And so I think that I think that council should have more input on this, and I'm glad that the public will be here tonight to be able to speak about it, and also on the 19th, because it would be nice to hear from them. And I think the public doesn't understand that with the budget, we have not been asked for any input, and it's never happened since my almost 8 years on city council. And I think the public doesn't realize that. I think they believe that we're the ones putting these numbers together, and we're not. So it's given to us to figure out where do we go from here. And I think the public should understand that.
So when the public is able to come out tonight and speak about it, you've probably heard from people, residents, as you're out and about on your daily life and business. What are you hearing from people about this tax rate increase?
That's a good question, and actually what we're hearing the most of, I think, me in particular, are the pool admission fees, because we tried it once 2 years ago, and I think charging non-residents, we probably took in about 10 grand. And in the realm of things, out of a $60 million budget, is it worth it for staff to try to, say, okay, are you a, non-city resident? Okay, now you need to pay this. I do believe for a fact that because we did not charge last year, and even with the amount of rain that we had about 6,000 more visitors last year than the year before. So for me, that tells me admission fees don't work. That would keep people away. And my concern is, if we do that and attendance is down again, are we going to have a council in the future that says, oh, well, look at that, now you only need one pool because you're not getting the people? The demand is there. It's a matter of how we make it available to the public. The other complaints I've been hearing, two complaints really, is the fact that the zoo was not included in the budget, but also the sticker fees for trash bags is proposed to go up, as well as the cost for the bins. So I've been hearing from people about that. So
zoo, pools, and trash, is anyone complaining about the tax rate proposal up 18? Is that too high?
Maybe people believe that we always get that whittled down, and so I think that some people I have talked to have felt that and said, well, I know that council will be working on that and getting that reduced, and that's what we always have done. I mean, it's not a rubber stamp, no problem, let's approve it and beyond with, that's not how council should work, and that certainly is not how I work. So I see where there are some things that we can do to definitely get that decreased, and that's why I wasn't surprised. But I think the public shouldn't be surprised either, because I can tell you that's not going to be the tax rate that's going to be approved. It's definitely going to be a lot less than that.
And as you said, last year it was whittled down, and from 19% to 7 or 8%, I think. And then you've been on council for the almost 8 years. You've seen a lot of budgets. If it's always starting high and you whittle it down, how many more times can that happen? Because some people may say that council as a whole is kicking the can down the road because there are some costs that just have to happen. Well, what do you think of that?
Well, that's a good point. And during COVID, I mean, we actually had a tax rate decrease, and I think that, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say I believe the current mayor and the former mayor voted against a tax decrease. I'd have to look at that, but I do know last year I voted against the budget because I did not think that the 7.5% whatever, I thought we could have done better on that.
Could have brought it down lower. Is what
Oh,
you're saying?
yes.
Okay.
In fact, I have been advocating about, we had $1 million that we could have bonded for the Flynn pool, and that $1 million would still be in the general fund. I have done that several times. Our city comptroller has said, to be fiscally responsible, it would have been best to bond for the Flynn pool and for the land purchase. But people voted against it for political purposes so that they can use it to attack people. That's not in the best interest of the taxpayers, that's for sure, because we could still have a good $7 to $7.5 million in the fund balance right now, and we wouldn't even be having to worry about these budgets. Sure, in a few years, especially with the hydro, but I think people really need to realize it's not a matter of spending the money, it's knowing when you should be bonding and being fiscally responsible. I know I voted to bond and kept advocating to bond because we bond for trucks, we bond for $300,000 items. Why wouldn't we do it for $1 million? And if we did that last year, we would have gotten down to probably almost a 0% increase. We could have done that. So I think we have to think outside the box. We have to have the vision to say, where are we going to be, in a couple of years? Had we done that 2 years ago, that money would still be there, and I think people would probably feel a little bit better about that.
So as you look at the budget and you want to whittle it down, where do you whittle it down? What things are you looking at? Because as you said, council has a say in this, right?
Sure.
So part of your responsibility is to give your ideas. So what are you thinking?
Absolutely. I think, our city comptroller, I know, is always conservative about sales tax revenue. I think that in the latest month it's doing very well. I think we should look at that. There hasn't been an increase made in the budget for some time. I understand he wants to be conservative, but we usually end up a little over the budget anyway, so that's always a plus. We can definitely eliminate the demolition costs for the Alteri pool. It's not necessary. That money could be used for something else. I think in the capital budget, the Newell Street project, I agree that we should make sure that we take care of the underground utilities, the water, the sewer, the wastewater. We should do all of that. But do we really need to spend the money on repaving, curbs, sidewalks, trees, and then try to restrict parking? No, I don't agree with that. I mean, we have a new business that is looking to open there soon, and the fact that staff want to shut down Newell Street for traffic, or at least for parking, maybe make it a one-way. I mean, there's all these discussions, but the fact is there is not enough parking now for 3 businesses to operate there, and I think we have to be pro-business friendly, and by restricting parking is not being that. And I think that some of these business owners are very concerned about how this will affect their business. Even the construction project, I understand there are some people concerned about that and whether they need to shut down or not. So I think that we want to alleviate their fears and say, no, I think there's support there to keep the parking as it is. I can see Hauk Street, that should be probably restricted. I can understand the neighbors there, but on Newell Street, I think that we should not be restricting that. We've done it around the square, and it hasn't worked, and I think that we have to really concentrate more on what business owners are looking for.
So the $7.5 million reconstruction project may be too much, is what you're thinking?
Oh, I agree. That's one thing.
Yeah.
Right now we have 5 police officer positions vacant. I'd like to see how many are still in the academy that have the potential of taking a job. I think they may have already lost a recruit, so we may have to look at that. I think we should be looking at other vacant positions and look at, do we really need to fill them right now?
So that's a hard one to talk about or propose not cuts, but not filling, right? But I mean, with a police force, you're definitely going to hear from people to say we need more police.
Oh yeah,
right?
well yeah, but you're right, because back in, I want to say 2022, the budget called for 5 additional police officer positions, I believe. And I was in support of that, but yet other people that were on council then and still on council were against that. And I think that was one of the reasons why they voted against the budget, was because of the positions. But when you have a city manager, you have staff, you have a city comptroller telling you, yes, this is not a problem, you know, we need these positions. So that's why we looked at that. So that's why the police budget probably for the first time is more than the fire department budget. The fire department is fully staffed, and they're projecting a lot less in overtime costs because of that. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that.
One of the votes that you have coming up, is it tonight on overriding the tax cap?
Yes.
So the state puts a certain amount as to what the city can tax, increase taxes each year, and if there's going to be a tax increase more than that, then the city council has to, or any legislative body has to take the vote to say, okay, we're going to override that tax cap. Usually that just happens. There are governments that just say, you know, it's just a routine thing, and they just, yes, you know, pass it and whatever. That may come up to a debate tonight, do you think? I
think so. And actually tonight, all we're doing is setting a public hearing on the tax cap, overriding the tax cap on May 19th. I know in the years past, I've voted against overriding it. I think in the last couple of years, I have voted to do so. And I think tonight we'll set the public hearing, but we want to see what happens with the budget, so that come May 19th, you know, I have to take a hard look at that and decide, do I want to override that or not? If we don't override it, then 2.5% is the increase that we could be looking at. I mean, and so that's going to be tough to try to get everything whittled down to that. So
it kind of ties the hands of city council and the manager, to where if you don't override the tax cap, that you have a limit of, as you just said, 2.5%, as that could be the maximum tax increase out of this budget.
Right.
Out of a budget that's calling for 18.8 right now, it has to go down to 2.5%. So if that happens, that really does hold feet to the fire, and I would imagine either some vacant positions won't be filled, or your Newell Street example could be whittled down from $7.5 million. That's really tough.
Well, it is, and you know, and the other thing is that on the capital budget, we don't necessarily, meaning council adds things to it. It basically comes to us with these projects already added in, and so we can go through it and decide no on several things. Now, in the current budget, there's a line item of $25 million for a DPW building. Well, now that's not necessary because of, you know, we're in the process, hopefully, of purchasing the building on Van Duzy Street. And that will help alleviate a lot of their constraints with space where they are right now. So with that, I mean, that would drastically reduce that. I'm still not convinced that we need to spend $100 million on the water project for the disinfected byproducts. The fact that we are running 2 years now with the levels below what they, what the maximum is, I'd like to see what other options do we have that would be less expensive. I know that we need to cover the water source as it's coming in. That is a known problem. But I think going beyond that, I certainly would enjoy talking with my colleagues about that, but I think there are something, and we did get, I think, an extension on that in terms of the project. So, and we still need to apply for grants. I find that, and I know that the city relies on grant writers, but there are so many opportunities out there that we could get, and that's why I push for the comprehensive plan and also the master plan in the park, because once those are in place, the city is definitely eligible for grants to do different things, and until those were passed, we were a little, we had our hands tied. So I think that we have that ability to be looking for more. I think that I think we have to be a little bit more assertive in telling staff, look, these are the things we're looking for to help reduce expenses. The same thing like with the reservoir. I mean, we're like, what do we have for grant opportunities? So I think that we need to concentrate on that too, because they're out there. The state has them, but I feel that Watertown sometimes is behind in that, and that they should be right at the forefront of being considered just like any other municipality.
Lisa Ruggiero, good perspective. Thank you. As budget season begins, so
Yes,
the public
yeah.
hearing tonight, and people can come and they can voice their opinions as to
Absolutely.
what they'd like to see.
Yep, absolutely. And the schedule is out there for the meetings. I know the first meeting starts on Wednesday. Those are open to the public.
Budget workshops is what you're referring to,
Yes,
right?
budget workshops. So I think there's 5 scheduled, and the last one I believe is May 20th. I think it's May 20th, but it is open to the public, so I want people to realize they can go and learn as to what we're discussing, and certainly they can reach out to me about any concerns that they have.
And the first one on Wednesday is the biggest portion of the budget, public safety, with the fire department and the police department.
That's right.
Good stuff. All right,
Great.
Lisa, good to see you. Thanks.
Good to see you. Thank you.